Hello everyone, welcome to Urbanscape Bangalore. And in this episode, we will move away from plants for some time and look at composting from start to finish. This video will be divided into the composting process in the beginning, then we will move on to harvesting the compost, and not for the squeamish, we will talk about black soldier fly larvae and red worms that play an important role in the whole composting process. Just as an add on, looking at the present condition in India, I will also talk about mucormycosis and its association with composting in plants. And finally, I will talk about some benefits of composting. Now, let's look at how we can start a compost bin. For this, you need a holding container, and you can use an old tub like this, or for smaller places, a small bucket or paint container will also do. If you want, you can get a lot of terracotta compost bins in the market as well. The holes are created for air circulation and also helps the worms to enter and leave the bin as needed. Now, the first thing you need to do is to make holes into the container that you have and ensure that the container has a closed lid and do not make holes on the lid. To watch how you can make holes in such containers, you can watch this old video above. But ensure you make at least 2 or 3 holes at the bottom to allow the leachate to fall out. Next, you will need wet organic matter, or in compost parlance, the green matter, which includes your vegetable peels, fruit peels, and anything raw that comes out of your kitchen, with exceptions, of course, which will be discussed later. The next component will be the brown matter or organic matter that is dry. For example, cardboard, paper, hay, dry leaves, cocoa peat, and so on and so forth. Finally, water. Now, this is one thing you may avoid since the wet organic matter you add has a lot of water in it, but if you see your compost bin is too dry, then you can add water. So let's begin the composting process. Start by laying down a newspaper or cardboard at the bottom of the bin. Then you can layer it with other brown matter like cocoa peat, hay, etc. And then you can add the green matter, that is your kitchen waste. Avoid using cooked food since they have masalas and salt that the worms may not like. Also avoid using dairy products, meat, fresh animal manure, etc. Dairy and meat products could attract rodents and can also induce protein poisoning in the redworms if you're into vermicomposting. Now you can add coffee powder, tea leaves with the tea bags, but ensure the tea bag is not made of plastic. You can add eggshells. If you can crush it, the better, because they take a lot of time to decompose. Fruit seeds, coconut shells, coconut husks, twigs, branches, etc. take a lot of time to decompose, so you can use your discretion while adding such materials. Now, you don't have to kickstart your compost by adding anything extra, but you could add a little bit of the last year's harvested compost into the bin that may have all the essential microbes in it to hasten the composting process. I'm also adding some old cow dung pieces into the bin. This will further break down the manure, and if the compost has enough heat in it, the harmful bacteria in such manure get killed too. Now close the lid, making sure rainwater does not enter the bin, and keep it under shade. Now you need to layer this every day like a cake. After adding 3 layers of brown and green and brown respectively, you must repeat it again the next day. Now, adding cocoa peat alone has its disadvantage. Cocoa peat tends to hold a lot of moisture, making the compost more wet. And this will encourage mostly the black soldier fly larvae than the red worms. So I would suggest you grab all the dry leaves that you can from your locality, get hay from your fruit vendors, and add them to increase the brown matter in the bin. Now, if cocoa peat is the only option you have, I would advise you to buy such bricks rather than the loose ones that may be more costlier, and with the brick you get more cocoa peat like how I have done here. Add the cocoa peat brick in a big bucket and pour water till the whole brick disintegrates. Now you have cocoa peat for your plants and for your compost bin. Now, there are a lot of things you can add and avoid, a list of which will be given in detail in the description box below. As a simple measurement, remember if you add 1 part green matter, you must add at least 3 parts brown matter to keep the compost from stinking. Remember to stir the components in the bin to introduce air into it. This will also reduce the stench in your bin and will help attract more redworms. If you have a tumbling drum system, well and good. Or just lift the bin and shake it like this. Now let's look at leachate. Now the liquid that comes out of the bin is not composty but is leachate. Leachate is the runoff liquid that is found in kitchen waste that collects all the humus and some nutrients and fall down the bin in the form of this black liquid. So if you get a stinky leachate, it means your compost bin is unusually wet and the leachate has harmful pathogens and the liquid needs resting under the sun, or you could use an aquarium pumping system to oxygenate the liquid until you see the smell dissipate. You can use it for your plants in a 1:10 ratio where you add 1 part leachate and 10 parts water. Now, compost tea is a liquid that you get after adding aged compost into water like this, and you leave it to ferment for 2 or more weeks. The compost tea is more rich in beneficial microorganisms and is much better for plant growth compared to leachate due to the aerobic nature of the compost tea brewing process, which I will someday cover in detail for you all. Now, to collect the leachate, it's better you place your compost bin on such stands and add a vessel below that can collect this black liquid. Don't worry about staining, the leachate can be scrubbed off with some water and soap, and it does not affect the concrete as far as I know. But any stagnating liquid is bad for concrete, so such perched up arrangements are good enough. Now let's look at harvesting. So the ideal time to start your composting must be in summer, and you can give your compost bin some rest during the winter months, during which the rate of decomposition naturally slows down. The more you keep the compost rested, the better it will be, just like old wine. The compost gets more time to decompose even the most toughest organic matter. So you get to know that your compost is ready when the compost smells like raw earth. Now this was a rested bin and it was resting for a year and a half. Now since I did not turn it or stir the compost bin during the pandemic, the compost was stinking, which means that it's still anaerobic due to the lack of oxygen in the compost bin. So what you can do is to take all of it out of the bin and spread it across a sheet like this and keep it under the sun for a week or 2 until the smell disappears. Now remember to do this during dry days and not during the rainy seasons. Now you can remove the bigger twigs and seed pods that haven't broken down and use the more softer mushy product, that is the compost you want for your plants. You can either painstakingly sieve your compost or, like the lazy me, you can add this as is because perfection is more a human trait than a plant trait. So I have added the compost as is into my rose containers, and the earthworms in the soil will do the rest of the job for me. Compost has no limits, you can add as much as you want. Compost is rich in micro and macronutrients, and making your own compost beats any experience of you buying a compost bag from a store, because the ones that you get in the market are mostly adulterated with cocoa peat or sand and soil. Now let's talk about redworms. So the earthworms that you find in the soil are not the ones that will help you in composting. Redworms are the ones that will help you in composting. Redworms are smaller in size compared to the longer earthworms that are found in the soil rather than in compost bins. So there is no point taking them and adding them into the compost bin, they will just go away. Though the earthworms and redworms are difficult to identify, the redworms are distinctly red in color and the earthworm is more brown in color. Redworms can eat half their weight and their excreta is the most richest organic soil amendment. You don't have to add them in the bin, they will come if the conditions in the bin are conducive. Now, if you want to increase the amount of redworms, you must increase the brown matter in your compost bin. and not let the bin become too wet. If the compost bin is too acidic due to excess wet matter, the black soldier fly larvae flourishes, leaving the red worms high and dry. But I've seen that after the black soldier fly has done its thing and disappeared during the winter months, the red worms appear and eat the leftovers. They also eat the poop of the black soldier fly larvae called FRASS and converts it into readily available nutrients for the plants. FRASS is a more anaerobic organic matter and can lead to growth defects in plants. But the red worms will compose the FRASS for you. So wait for the red worms to come to start applying the compost to the soil. Now let's talk about the unnecessarily feared black soldier fly larvae, or in simple terms, grubs. These are one of the most versatile and beneficial insects known to humankind. The adult fly is not a disease vector like the housefly. They don't sit on your food at all. The adult soldier fly, in fact, has no mouth parts even. They are harmless and they don't sting. Their whole life cycle spans 44 days and the adults survive only for 4 days, before which they have to find a compost pile or decaying matter, lay eggs and die. The eggs turn into larvae that last for up to 30 days. The larva eats twice its own body weight and needless to say, it is a voracious eater. And after which the larva will go into the pre-pupa stage in which it changes its color from white to black. And in this stage, they crawl out of the bin searching for a dark, dry place like this. After approximately 7 days, they move into the pupa stage where they stop crawling and become stiff like a stick. And then the fly emerges to continue the cycle all over again. The larvae can eat anything other than plastic and can quickly decompose organic matter better compared to the red worms. And you can see in a month or two, I'm almost left with a good amount of composted matter already. If you find their numbers overwhelming, you can stop adding organic matter for a few weeks and resume slowly by making sure that the brown matter is added in more quantity. These are great feed for birds and fishes like koi. If their number increases, there could be a weird smell in the bin if you get too close to the bin, that is. Also, wash your hands with soap if you touch them just in case. Now let us briefly shift our attention to mucormycosis or the black fungal disease. This disease is caused due to a fungus that is normally present in the air, soil, etc. You must be breathing it right now, but it does not affect you because you have a sound immune system. Those who have compromised immune systems and in the COVID scenario, those who have uncontrolled diabetes are the most vulnerable. These are opportunistic infections that strike when your immune system is weak. I've heard a lot of apartment committees in India asking plant parents to get rid of their plants fearing the black fungus disease. This is uncalled for. What will they do about all the soil on earth then? The best thing is to talk to your doctor on what precautions you must take once you come back home after hospitalization. Check if you must wear a mask until your diabetes is under control. Check if you must stay away from your plants or your compost bin until your diabetes is under check. Always talk to experts before making any decisions. And also, you can comment below if anything said here is not correct. With that, let's look at the benefits of composting. Compost adds micro and macronutrients into the soil that helps with plant growth without burning the plant. Also, adding compost in the soil helps increase microbial activity in the soil that in turn absorbs carbon from the air and helps in the fight against global warming. By not sending half of your organic waste to the landfill, you are avoiding so much air and soil pollution. The leachate that otherwise is formed here, when formed in landfills, mixes with all the toxic inorganic materials and becomes a toxic soup that can contaminate water sources. Also, mixing of organic and inorganic matter in the landfills can produce harmful greenhouse gases like methane. So by composting at home, remember, you're not only saving money by producing your own compost, but importantly, you're saving the earth. So, if you find it difficult to compost in your balconies and if you live in apartment complexes, then ask your apartment committees to start a composting zone in the premises, and you can see the amount of waste that you can prevent from ending up in the landfill. The only waste you will be left with will be the dry waste and other refuse that can be recycled. So let's join our hands together in this fight against unscrupulous waste management that is harming our planet. So if I've left out any information, you can always find it in the description box below. With this, we've come to the end of yet another episode of Urbanscape Bangalore, and I really hope you enjoyed this particular program. Additionally, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. The links are given below. And with compost, the saying to grow slow is to grow well is only befitting. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, a very warm goodbye.